Call the meeting to order for the Wicomico County Council Legislative Session 2018-24, October 30th, 2018. Those that'd like to stand and join us in the Lord's Prayer and Pledge of Allegiance, please do it. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Entertain a motion to approve the legislative minutes from October 16th, 2018.
So moved.
Motion second, discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Minutes have been approved. Entertain a motion to adjourn as the Wicomico County Council and to convene as the Urban Services Commission.
So moved.
Motion second, discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're now convened as the Urban Services Commission. Entertain a motion to approve the minutes from September 10th, 2018, reference to Covington and Hearn Bailey street lighting.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Discussion, corrections. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried, minutes are approved. Entertain a motion to approve the minutes from October 2nd, 2018, reference to Village Downriver.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Discussion, corrections. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Motion carried, minutes are approved. Entertain a motion to adjourn as the Urban Services Commission and reconvene as the Wicomico County Council in legislative session.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We're now reconvened as the Wicomico County Council. Good morning, Mrs. Hurley.
Good morning, Council President, council members, ladies and gentlemen. The first item on the agenda this morning is a public hearing on Resolution Number 130, 2018, to authorize the county executive to acquire 69 acres of land, more or less, located along the southwesterly side of U.S. Route 50, being shown on tax map 28 as parcel numbers 47 and 163, to be used for mining soil or any other use except as a dump or landfill of any kind or size. A public hearing notice was published in the Daily Times stating that a public hearing would be held this morning at 10 a.m., and it was also posted on the county's website.
At this time, we open the floor to the public on resolution number 130-2018. If you have any comments you'd like to make in reference to this resolution, come to the podium, please. State your name, county of residence, and your concerns. Good morning.
My name is Thomas Tucker, 312 Mill Pond Lane, Salisbury, 21804. I would like to inquire and ask, the language of this resolution and it being before the council, this council at this time, is this resolution, will it be changed? Can it be changed after it is passed? And I hope that you will pass it. My concern is that pass the resolution, come back a couple of months, change the language in the resolution. We're saying a dump, no dump on the site that is proposed to be purchased. It is located on the western side of the county at the western gateway to the city. I don't think we need another dump there. I really don't, and I understand that all of the work has been done, preliminary work, looking for sites and such like that. If this resolution as written cannot be changed, I'm in favor of the resolution. However, if the resolution can be changed later, is there somewhere, maybe in the deed of trust or somewhere, that can be stipulated that for perpetuity, that no dump or landfill will be used on that site. That's a great concern because of the area in my parish where people live, work, and play. Thank you for your time. Bless you at your work.
Thank you, Pastor Tucker.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Talana Watson, and I'm actually representing my husband, Lewis Watson, as president of the Watchmen with one voice. But we are Wicomico County residents, and we're coming before you today to express concerns about an additional landfill at the location, I understand, the corner of Route 50 and Naylor Mill Road. I actually like to do a little bit of research before I comment on anything, and I was reading about landfills and some of the concerns and hazards that may accompany them. And just as Reverend Tucker has indicated, it is a concern for those of us who live on the west side of town, those of us who have businesses on the west side of town. And one of the things that I was reading about is that with landfills, there has to be a concern about the level of pollutants or toxins, greenhouse gases, and something called leachate. So I did read about that. Very concerned because I realized that toxins and pollutants can create health hazards for those who live in the area, as well as seepage in the soil and the groundwater. I too, like Reverend Tucker, in reading the proposal, I had a concern about the timing of it and could it ever be changed. I would hope that this looks positive and reads well, but I would hope that something would be added, that it would not ever be a possibility for it to be located there.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Watson.
Good morning,
Morning.
Mr. President, and to all the council members, and to all of the people of God who's in this chamber. I'm standing on behalf of the Watchmen with One Voice Ministerial Alliance. Our president is Dr. Lewis N. Watson, who's unable to be with us this morning, but he asked me to share. So I come today to just to...
Mic up. Oh, pull your mic up. Yeah, thank you. There you go.
I come today to just to mention, it has already been established before, many of our brothers and sisters have shared in different meetings that we've had about the landfill. And looking at the resolution today, we were pleased with it, but as Ms. Watson had pointed out and Dr. Tucker had pointed out, we pray that there not be a change later. As you know, we're in the final hour of administration. Can change, things can change, some will change, but we are praying that we can set this in stone, that it will not, regardless to who sits in the seats that you're now in, that it will not be overturned. If you approve it as it is today, that it will not be a landfill, because it will affect our parishioners in the neighborhood. And it just seems like we need to be considerate even the more. Do unto others as we want them to do to us. So please keep those things in mind, please, as you make this pass and make the correction or set in stone what needs to be done. Thank you.
Everybody knows you, but for the public, could you state your name for the record?
I'm Bishop George A. Copeland. I'm a pastor, been pastor for going on 44 years, been preaching 50 years, and been in this community since 1971.
And that's the first time anybody ever told you they couldn't hear you at a podium. Thank you, Bishop.
Good morning. Thanking God for the opportunity to be here. To President Cannon, members of the County Council, and all those assembled, again, good morning. not so long ago, I was before you talking about the landfill and all of the other things that have been put on the west side. I joined the rest of the folks. Can you hear me? Oh, I thought I gave it. Mary Ashanti, President Wicomico County NAACP for over 20 years. Community active for over 40 years. In reference to the landfill, I hope whatever decision that you make today will once and for all get rid of the idea of expanding the landfill on the west side by residential areas. As we said this time and the other time, is for health reasons and also for the fact that there have been so many negative things put on the west side. So I hope today it will clear it up. And like Bishop said, no matter who in your seat, that this will be the end of it. So I thank you for hearing what I have to say, and for what been said before. I support them. I'm a little bit late. I had to change a doctor's appointment to get here. And so, thank you.
Thank you, President Shawnee.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning, colleagues. My name is Sharice Sample Hughes. I reside here in Salisbury, and I am the delegate for District 37A. So this will probably be very brief for you, but I just wanted to say first and foremost, at the hearing that we had at the Civic Center regarding this issue, the one request that I made, and I'm glad it is here today, 7 days before the election, is that we have this topic on the agenda because this is very important to the community that I serve. As you are aware, we are very much concerned that this expansion of a landfill could continually go over to the west side of the county. I've been fighting against this for many years prior to even getting on the county council. So this is a fight, and as you can see, the citizens are here today to continue to sing that same message. The fight originally was in San Domingo. Here we are back in Salisbury, and the statement was, why are you worried about it? Because it's 30 years from now. Well, I'm here today. I'm 41, and I'm going to be here the rest of my years prayerfully. So my point is today is just to know that while we have some citizens here, we have others that could not be present, but they are very much concerned about any additional expansion or any further use for this as a landfill, because we do, on the west side, deserve better, and we do expect our economy to thrive as well as the other parts of the county. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate.
I'm Shani Shields, and I live on Jersey Road. I didn't make the first hearing. Some members of my church were there, and I was called to come. And I just want to ask questions because I want to get the full understanding when this was really planned. I go to McDonald's every morning, and this morning, a gentleman was in there that works for a dump truck company, and he informed us for the last 6 months they've been carrying dirt out to the landfill as if the expansion is already being approved. So I want to know why is the dirt being placed there and for what reason? And he has been working himself like 5 days a week, and there's many dump truck companies coming and delivering dirt to this particular area. So the other question I have, we have the Naylor Mill extension. How far over will be coming to the stoplight? I want that from my understanding, because there's homes there's Rockawalking Ridge. There's 2 little houses that's empty right by the stoplight. Will be coming to their backyard. There's other people that live on that side of Route 50 will be coming in their backyard. And with all the land that we have for development, couldn't you put it in Pittsville, Parsonsburg, Fruitland, any other community to expand the dump, because I know some people don't recycle, and that's one of the problems, the recycling effort. I recycle, but some people don't, and I think that's what we need to do, also educate people in recycling their bottles, their newspapers, their cardboard, their glass. And I think that I'm totally against it. I think if you have to expand it, because I understand all that, getting rid of trash, you make money on the landfill, because I know that when I was on the city council in our budget, we pay to put our trash in the dump. So I just want you to consider these folks that came out to speak against it. And I hate to see my people have to come up here all the time when something seems like it's already been voted on, already been done, already been planned. I think we should have hearings or reach out to the community and come to the community itself and explain what your plans are for the community. I spoke to Dr. Boyd, and I know you have a 20-year plan. I think it was voted on in 2017. I think I'm asking you all that we need to dissect that and see what plans are being made, especially to our area, and compare what the city wants to do and compare what the county wants to do. And I need a hard copy, if I can be given one, so we can start educating ourselves on the plans for our community. Because this might not just be the one plan, it might be something else that we need to address, and we need to address it before we have to come here and stand before you guys and protest against it. So to keep us from protesting, we need to be involved as a community to know what the plans are in 20 years. And while we're sleeping, people are planning, and we need to get away from that. We need to plan what we want for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shields. Any other public comments? Seeing none, that concludes the public comments on Resolution 130-2018. Entertain a motion from council to approve Resolution 130-2018. Any motion?
Well, I think we should make a motion so we can begin discussing it.
We have a motion. Is there a second? Excuse me?
To discuss it?
Motion, need a motion second to discuss. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Motion second. Discussion. Mr. Kilmer?
I'll go first.
Councilman Davis.
I'll address some of the concerns. As far as Ms. Shields, the dump trucks you're seeing, they're for the landfill now. They're not for the expansion that we're talking about now. They're doing a cell out there now, and that's what they have to do. I think it's the line that cell that's out there already. It's not for the expansion right now. And as far as how far it would come all the way up to Route 50 if that did pass up there to the intersection. Not the one that's going on now, but this resolution that they're off their land. It would come right up to the intersection of Route 50 and Naylor Mill.
No,
But the pots.
yeah, the pot probably wouldn't go that far up. It would be back further, close to where the tree line, a little bit further between the tree line.
But it's still on that corner.
You should be telling the right thing now.
Now, as far as this resolution, like your concerns were, if it is passed, just like you said, right now, only two of us right here that are guaranteed will be back. The other seats are up. And like I was just told, I'm quite sure back in the day, a resolution was passed that there wasn't gonna be any alcohol at the Civic Center. Do we now have alcohol at Civic Center? So this thing isn't etched in stone, so it could be changed by next council. So you do have a good concern, and so do I. So as you can see, I would be against it.
Thank you, Councilman Davis. Councilman Holloway?
You know, the gentleman that came up first made the statement that he would be in favor of it if we could make sure that it wasn't changed. I guess Mr. Wilbur, could you come up? I'd like to ask some questions. I know you were deep in thought there. I think the concern from the citizens, you know, when we had the meet, I guess Wayne or Weston might want to come up too. Wayne, Weston. I know none of you want to come up. Come up, someone, please. You know, when we had the hearing out to the Civic Center, and we explained that, you know, maybe one of the ways to protect the community was to have a borough pit instead of a landfill on this property.
Correct.
How can we engineer this project on paper rather than digging the hole, to keep that so it's going to stay that way forever. That 5 years or 10 years from now, a council or an executive doesn't come along and say, we need that for a landfill. And because it's not going to be dug up right away. We're not going to mine dirt there tomorrow or the next day. Is there any way to do that?
Grab your mic, Paul.
I think these
Yeah, I
folks
think
deserve to be protected on
Right,
this.
the resolution that is before the council is to put a deed restriction right in the deed. So that is the best legal protection, that
But is it irrevocable?
as long as Wicomico County is the sole owner of that property, then that restriction, if it was voted by the council, could be changed.
It could be changed. So it doesn't 100% protect the folks.
What I would analogize it to is if you had a subdivision and it is owned by one owner and restrictions are put on that property, as long as that one owner has put those restrictions on, that owner could change those restrictions. So
we're
that's
not-
what I analogize it to.
So I think what we need is to find a different way to do this, or a more ironclad way to protect these folks.
Yeah, for the audience, Joe, if we placed a restriction on the deed, if there was a deed restriction, as long as that owner owned the land, so as long as Wicomico County owned the land, the only way to set aside that deed restriction would be if a succeeding council decided that it was in the best interest of the county to set aside that deed restriction. If the county were to sell that property, then that deed restriction runs with the land and it
Right.
couldn't be set aside.
That's correct.
So the great minds of the legal system needs to get to work here and figure out how we can ironclad this thing so it won't ever be changed.
What is our, so the plan for the landfill, when you apply for the state, things like that, that outlines what exactly we're going to do there. That would then be kind of irrevocable, wouldn't it? If we tell the state that we are, going to have a borrow pit there and expand elsewhere, or whatever, then once we get state approval, we couldn't come back and change that. Is that right? So the irrevocable part would be at that point?
From a regulatory
Yeah, right.
standpoint, from a regulatory standpoint, Mark, yes, we would need the state's approval to change that footprint. Bear in mind that one of the reasons that the county moved forward with making application was that we perceive a very small window for expanding the landfill. You will recall that the previous governor had, by executive order, placed a restriction on any further expansion of landfills. Governor Hogan has set aside that restriction. A succeeding governor could invoke it again, or the legislature could invoke that restriction again. So to answer your question, the likelihood of us making application for expansion or reconfiguration of the landfill and getting state approval, then that being set aside at some later date is probably rather tenuous. But I understand the citizens want some certainty that they're not going to have a landfill encroaching towards Route 50. We understand that.
Well, and there's also, so, I think it's this council's desire to have that as a borrow pit and not as a landfill. But let's say that we reject this and the land stays on the open market and another council, another executive comes in and buys it and wants to use it as a landfill. I mean, this land's been on the market for a while, as I understand. So there could be a future council or future executive that would buy, if we reject this, that would buy it and then would use it for a landfill too. So we're kind of in a situation that we vote no, that leaves it on the market. It could potentially be used for a future landfill expansion. If we vote yes, we put some restrictions on it, that's more protection, but not necessarily ironclad unless Paul
correct.
can come up with something. So we're not in a perfect situation, but I don't know, I mean, this may be some, I mean, when does this contract have to be, when do we have to act if we're going to approve this, I guess is what I'm asking you.
I'll defer to Paul on that.
Okay,
Yeah. Let me get the file.
Can I get back to my question? And it goes along with what Councilman Holloway was saying. I know legislation in different jurisdictions have been passed where they have a supermajority. I know my concern is to protect the citizens out there. And I know deeds have been changed, restrictions have been changed. Some have been ignored. Is there any way to protect the council by putting a supermajority on there if a new council wants to change it? Can that be done?
Yeah, I think a resolution is a resolution.
Yeah,
Can't do that with a resolution.
you might be able to do that legislatively.
Yeah, that's,
Well, it could be undone legislatively, too.
I mean, you could put supermajority on, but then a
It
future
could still be
council.
undone by a supermajority,
Yeah.
right?
Mr.
Well,
Wilbur,
it's a
you were,
step to protect.
you were looking up, in
Yeah.
reference.
Because, I mean, we need the dirt from there, I mean, I think that much is clear by what you said.
Well, we need dirt from some source.
We need dirt, yeah.
And that's a proximate location to the existing footprint.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that that's the only dirt available. You know that there's soil also available at Connolly Mill.
Yeah, but we could use both.
This is much more expensive soil.
Yeah, but, I mean, and if we do have a borrow pit there, then it's guaranteed that there, I mean, we start digging dirt there, the land, I mean, there's never gonna be trash put in there. So,
Correct.
you know, from that perspective, a borrow pit meets our needs, and meets the community's desires, I would think. But, you know, I do understand the concern, so
Sure.
it'd be nice to find a way to make this all work, you know, but I don't know what kind of date we're working up against.
I have a thought.
Paul, you're gonna answer that
Let me
question?
answer.
Okay,
The
yeah.
the contract is currently, has a settlement date of December 1, 2018, but that could be extended by agreement of both parties.
The best way to protect this, if we want to protect the community by a borrow pit, is just as soon as we buy the property, to start excavating dirt. In other words, abandon where we're getting dirt from now, start that process on the new property that we bought, reserve the dirt where we're digging now until we need it at a later date. That way it'll preserve, that way it'll make sure you're not gonna, if you dig dirt off of it, you're not gonna have a landfill there.
Well,
And I don't- that
let's
would
get
be
a
an
clarification. Weston, can you give us a clarification on that? I mean, I would imagine you could dig quite a bit of dirt and then still make it a landfill if you wanted to.
Once you break the groundwater area, I mean, this is where it'll get off. I don't want to say it's impossible, but it'll be significantly harder from the state standpoint, because then we would then have to fill. I mean, like the borrow pit we utilize now is upwards of 40 to 60 feet deep, depending on where it is. So we would need that amount of dirt to bring it up to, say, groundwater level. And then, and that's not feasible.
How deep does the cell have to be before you create the landfill? Because you have to, I'm assuming you do have to excavate in order to put a cell in, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think these are yeah, because there's a clay liner, and then all the concerns about things leaching through. The way they're designed is to alleviate a lot of those concerns. But yeah, it would be dependent on the state. I don't think anybody's proposed putting a landfill on open water. That's basically what you'd be trying to do. So you'd have to fill the water, make sure it's compacted. They want to look at the structural elements of the soil. So yeah, I don't see it being permitted by the state, but that's really something that would have to come from MDE's solid waste.
How much dirt would have to be extracted from that site to then definitively state that property will not be used as a landfill?
I would think if you went along the perimeter of the existing landfill, that sort of cuts it off at that point. The reason it was originally proposed going north, we had consultants look at both directions based on property we own or property we could acquire. We don't own this property now to even expand north. Going north allowed us, we don't have to close Brick Kiln Road. We don't have to deal with, there were some wetlands on the southern portion, but we think we can navigate those. Going to the north added 50 years of useful life to the landfill. We currently, estimates are 22 years. I know I've said that before, but for people who are new to it, going south provides an additional 30 years of expansion. So this isn't a new landfill. This is taking the existing landfill and just building onto it, trying to add space. If we do nothing, which we can always look at doing as well, in 22 years, approximately, depending on how much trash comes in, we will then have to ship it elsewhere.
Well, I think Councilman Kilmer made a really good point, that if we were not to do this today, then, 10 years from now or 6 years from now or whatever, another council could possibly go down this road. In order to put some guarantees in that we can isolate this property strictly for a borrow pit only, it would benefit everyone at this point to approve this as a borrow pit and lock it in as a borrow pit, and it can never be used as a landfill. Is there any way legally that we could ask the owners, current owners, to allow us an option to dig before we purchase, remove soils for that guarantee, so that when this council finally approved it, we were only going to be going in one direction? That's way out of the box, I understand.
Yeah, I think the current owners of the property are looking to just sell the property.
Well, they're not, I've got a feeling they probably won't sell it unless they try to work with us in some fashion. And I'm dead serious. They're going to have to think outside the box in order to help make this happen, I think.
Well, is there a way to give, again, if we have December 1st to act, and I think we should act, we need to expand the landfill, and we need the dirt, I think from there it makes sense. And I think it does make sense for us to act now if we have some sort of desire to protect this as a burrow pit, which is just digging the dirt out and not putting trash there, for us to act. Would a couple weeks give Paul or Bob Taylor time to try to see the legal angles of this and give us a more, we kind of sprang this on you, Paul, I guess, so, we'd still be able to work by the December 1st deadline. I don't want to screw anything up, because I support the landfill. We obviously need more than 20 years of life for the landfill, but we need to take into consideration these concerns too. So.
A positive for the owners that we'd pay them for the dirt. We're paying somebody for dirt right now, we'd pay them for the dirt.
No, I think their concern's going to be that if we begin to disturb the property, then if we don't buy the property, now we've complicated their ability to sell the property or develop the property.
Right.
So
I understand.
That gets a little difficult, I think.
Understand.
Weston, is there anything that would inhibit us from moving our excavating operation onto that property immediately after we purchased it to start excavating dirt?
No, I don't see why we couldn't. We need a new haul path. There's some trees there that separate the landfill now, and the trees are on the Potts property for the most part. We'd have to, doing it immediately would be a stretch, but once we cleared the trees, if we own the properties, we probably could. We need new haul roads and so forth, but it's an operational question. Can it be done? Yes. How hard and what costs, we'd have to look into that.
Well, sometime you're going to have to do it anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
So, I'm just looking for a guarantee for the citizens on that side of the county. If you start excavating this site, it's very likely it won't be turned into a landfill. So I think that's one good option. I don't know if everybody agrees.
That's a
on
good
that or not.
thought.
Do you have a question, Matt?
Just one other thought. The county purchased the property. Would they then be able to transfer the ownership to NGO, to a non-governmental organization? Then, in that instance, the deed restriction would still be enforceable. But the NGO could have ownership. We sell for $1. We still get use of the land. We work out a lease agreement, whatever we could want to call it.
Would the state permit that in the regulatory process, Weston?
Well, like we've been looking at with Connolly Mill about mining on property we don't own, that is possible. The permit process the permit to prove that we're exempt from the permit takes some time. So that goes back to, could we immediately start digging? Probably not. We'd probably looking several months out if we did that.
But at least if we're transferred, then it can't, it's locked in.
Lock it in.
Yeah.
Yeah, my question is the state going to be comfortable with ownership residing with some entity other than the county?
That's
Because we're operating the landfill.
right.
They would not be if it were an actual landfill expansion, but if we're digging dirt, I don't see
If
them.
we're purely mining,
If we're purely
they would be okay
mining,
with that. Okay,
I don't see an issue with that.
gotcha, okay.
Yeah. Another option.
That's a good option, yeah, that is a good
Okay.
option.
Could we give Paul a couple of weeks to work on this?
I have an answer by the 6th.
And in the final thought, the folks that are opposed to expansion of the landfill on the west side are pretty influential. I wouldn't want to be sitting on this council if somebody come along and change their mind on this thing. I don't think that would be, I think we'd see a lot more people in the room than we
We
have
understand.
now, so.
We understand.
I sense there is a consensus on the council that we certainly don't want to see the property expanded as a landfill. It would be a borough pit only. Am I correct? Yeah.
Yeah, we need to find a way to get
But
that
give
done.
Yeah, we
Paul a couple of weeks to figure out a way to.
figure out a way to lock that down.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Taylor?
Yeah, I have one other suggestion. It has nothing to do with what you've been talking about. It's a technical point.
Excuse me.
If there's,
Hang on. Hold on one second, if you could, please.
if
Mr.
there's
Taylor?
been no appropriation for this in either the operating or the capital budget, I think either we have to have that appropriation in place or that a contingency needs to be added in the contract of sale that there will be an appropriation as a contingency of settlement, one or the other. So when we come back, maybe that can be handled.
Okay. Larry?
Yeah, I attended the hearing, as did many people in this room, and I heard the citizens loud and clear about another location. Has this body, this council, not the council, but the county, searched for another location since that hearing?
No. It's not economically defensible to do that. I mean, the infrastructure costs would be enormous to create a landfill on a site when you have land contiguous to the existing landfill.
Okay, we didn't hear that night.
I'm pretty sure I said it.
Okay.
Councilman Cummings, did you have a question?
No, I'm good. I mean, we're on track to
We do.
table, to bring this back with some of the legal issues. But, okay, does that work?
Do I need to set a date if I make a motion to table?
Technically, a table requires a date, which would be
November the 20th.
November 20th.
You
Okay.
want to make a motion, I'll second.
All right, I'll make a motion to table this resolution until November 20th.
Have a motion to table, second? Need a second?
I made a
Motion, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution 130-2018 has been tabled.
And that's December 20th.
The next item on the agenda is Resolution Number 118, 2018, authorizing the county executive to accept grant awards from the Maryland Sports Amateur and Youth Grant Program in the amount of $63,700. And we have Mr. Steve Miller here, Director of Recreation, Parks, and Tourism, if there are any questions.
Entertain a motion to approve a resolution number 118, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor of resolution 118, 2018, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried, resolution passes.
Next is Resolution Number 119, 2018, confirming the appointment of Lori A. Carter as Director for the Department of Planning, Zoning, and Community Development.
Entertain a motion to approve resolution 119, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried, resolution passes.
Next is Resolution Number 120, 2018, confirming the appointment of John R. Monar as Director of the Department of Information Technology.
Entertain a motion to approve Resolution 120-2018.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried, resolution passes.
I did want to make note that both persons are here in the audience, and I appreciate seeing you guys here.
Congratulations.
Okay, the next item for business is a submission of an appointment and several reappointments to the Board of Appeals. In accordance with Charter Section 315, the county executive is to submit appointments to boards or commissions to council for confirmation at a legislative session. The Director of Administration has submitted a list of individuals to be considered for appointment and reappointment to the Board of Appeals. The Board of Appeals reviews applications for special exceptions and variances from the county zoning code and hears and decides appeals on matters such as housing standards, critical area resource protection, subdivision of land, taxicabs, and floodplain management. Starting with Resolution Number 121, 2018, confirming the appointment of David Ennis to the Board of Appeals.
Entertain a motion to approve Resolution 121, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chair abstains. Motion is carried, resolution passes.
Next is Resolution Number 122, 2018, confirming the reappointment of Vaughn Wimbrow to the Board of Appeals.
Entertain a motion to approve Resolution 122, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried, resolution passes.
Next is Resolution Number 123, 2018, confirming the reappointment of Gary Boggs to the Board of Appeals.
Entertain a motion to approve Resolution 123, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried, resolution passes.
Next is Resolution Number 124, 2018, confirming the reappointment of William Turner to the Board of Appeals.
Entertain a motion to approve Resolution 124, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried, resolution passes.
Next is Resolution Number 125, 2018, confirming the reappointment of Joseph Morse to the Board of Appeals.
Entertain a motion to approve Resolution 125, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried, resolution passes.
Next is Resolution Number 126, 2018, confirming the reappointment of Tammy L. Atkins to the Board of Appeals.
Entertain a motion to approve Resolution 126, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried, resolution passes.
Next is Resolution Number 127, 2018, confirming the reappointment of J. Phillips Wright, Jr. to the Board of Appeals.
Entertain a motion to approve Resolution 127, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried, resolution passes.
Okay, the next item for business is Resolution Number 128, 2018, declaring property at 9765 Barron Creek Road in Mardella Springs, Maryland to be surplus property and authorizing the sale thereof by negotiation on certain terms and for a minimum compensation to be received by the county. Council had a work session on this request on September the 18th and had a public hearing on it at the last meeting, which was on October the 16th, and we do have Mr. Wayne Strasburg here if there are any questions.
Entertain a motion to approve Resolution 128, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Resolution 128, 2018, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried, resolution passes.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Hurley. Mr. Hitchens, good morning.
Good morning. I call your attention to Resolution 129, 2018, regarding the audit on the Rec and Parks escrow accounts.
Entertain a motion to approve Resolution 129, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Discussion.
Thank you, Mr. President. As a quick background, proceeds from a small number of the Rec and Parks programs have to be reinvested back into the program or facility that earned it. So the balances of those earnings are escrowed. In the past, the activity of the escrow accounts had individual fund numbers in Munis before a consolidation took place in 2016. Currently, the total balance of the funds are accounted for in Munis and the county's financial statements. However, the balances of the individual escrow accounts are maintained in a spreadsheet by accounting staff at Rec and Parks. In our audit, we made 2 recommendations to help add transparency. We recommend looking into converting the escrow funds to restricted status on the financial statements. They are currently reported with unrestricted funds. Further, we also recommend Rec and Parks collaborate with the Finance Department to use project numbers in Munis, which is capable of tracking revenue and expenses without adding too much complexity to the current procedures. We would like to thank management staff from Rec and Parks as well as Finance for all the cooperations, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from council? I had one question in reference to the background under the audit report. In the last sentence, it says the Recreation and Parks accounting staff manages the balance that existed in the Fund 72 internally, but 72 was folded into Fund 60.
The activity is spent out of Fund 60. The escrow balance remains in 72 until it's needed. Recently, during the course of our audit, we found that they had transferred the balance from 72 to 60, but that was outside the scope of our audit. When we had set it up, it was still being managed in 72.
Okay. And is it standard procedure that with this report being 3 months after that you haven't received any tally of expenditures for the year ending June 30th, 2018 for this report, which was 3 months later in October?
Yeah, we finished our field work in August and early September, and the external auditors still hadn't, their deadline for receiving their financials, I believe, was until October. So I would say it's pretty standard.
Okay. All right. Usually under the final outcome of a report, either management comments or recommendations, usually management comments, I guess there's usually a statement as far as where we go from here.
There is a management comment on page 5.
Right. But it only says they appreciate the time that the internal auditor has spent, unless I'm
Right,
missing
and they'll
something.
look forward to creating the specific policies. The main policy, they have to look into making the recommended changes.
Okay, and I guess it's a little premature to have anything definitive just yet.
Sure, especially with the financial statement recommendation, that's going to take some work with the external auditors to make that happen.
Okay, all right, good, great. Any questions from anyone? No? All right. All those in favor of Resolution 129, 2018, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried, resolution passes. Thank you, Mr. Hitchens. Mr. Taylor, good morning.
One matter this morning, it's the introduction of a legislative bill. It would be an amendment of the current year's operating budget. It's legislative bill number 2018-05, amendment number 1, an act to amend and transfer the appropriation from use of prior year funds account to the transfer to others account in the amount of $254,758.15 in the annual budget for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2019. This is introduced by the President of the Council at the request of the County Executive, and it's for the purpose of having funds to pay grant matching funds for the Pirates Wharf project.
Entertain a motion from council to introduce legislative bill number 2018-05, amendment number 1.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Motion is second. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor of the introduction of legislative bill number 2018-05, amendment number 1, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Introduction of legislative bill passes.
We can have the public hearing on November the 20th, if that's okay with council.
Okay, it's okay with council? Thank you, Mr. Hurley. Thank you, Mr. Taylor. At this time, we open the floor for any public comments in general.
If you'd like to make any comments, please come to the podium, state your name, your county of residence, and your concerns.
Thomas Tucker, 312 Mill Pond Lane, again, in the county. I want to thank the council for looking at the proposed purchase of land and for working diligently to ensure that there will be no landfill in the next 50 years on that property. 50 years from now will not affect me, but there are young people who I represent who will be living in that area. Thank you so much for working diligently on this process, that there will not be a landfill on the west side.
Thank you, Reverend Tucker. Any other public comments? Council comments? Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry.
My name is Talana Watson again. I'm a Wicomico County resident. I was listening to all the conversation about the landfill. One thing that I've always thought of being a resident, I am one of those persons that I recycle also. I actually have a bin for plastic, aluminum, and glass that I take on a regular basis. And I often wonder why it is that our county does not have a recycling program to encourage our citizens to do that. So I would ask that it would be something that we could consider for the future to develop such an initiative or program for recycling.
That's a good point, Mrs. Watson. If you get the business card from the gentleman sitting right next to you, he will spend an afternoon with you. Or more.
And Ms. Watson, you forgot to mention you're running for school board there.
Yes.
You're allowed to
I'm
do
running,
that.
Okay, I'm running for Board of Education member at large.
Thank you.
Mary Ashanti, President of Wicomico County NAACP, and we are in the midst of early voting, and it ends November the 1st. And we're urging everyone to go out and vote between 10 a.m. and 8 p.m. at the Civic Center. So this is a plug for that. Go out and vote, take some folks with you. Thank you.
Thank you, President Shawnee. Any other public comments? Okay. Council comments?
Yeah, I would like to say on the recycling issue, I know I've sat in meetings with the executive and Weston and Wayne, and I think there is a very strong desire in Wicomico County to increase its recycling rate. Wicomico County we're above the state average in terms of recycling. We have a good recycling department, and I think Weston at least spends a lot of time thinking about how to increase that. And if we could develop a strategy over the next 30 years where the landfill would never have to expand, I think that would make us all very happy. It's very expensive and very causes a lot of community concern when landfills expand. And so if we could find a way if we could recycle all of our trash, that would make us all very happy. That's just not economically feasible right now, but it certainly is something the county is looking at. I know that, there's a lot of time spent on the executive side. I don't want to speak for you guys, but I think I'm accurate saying that, there's a lot of time trying to figure out ways to reduce, trash going in the landfill, figure out ways to recycle better. They've brought ideas to us. It's something we spend a lot of time on. So it would, I commend the executive for, thinking of ways to deal with our trash needs for the next 50 years. But within that 50 years, if we can find an economical way to reduce the trash and reduce the amount going in the landfill, I think we would all embrace that. So it's prudent to plan based on the technology we have today. But the counties certainly will look to find ways to reduce the trash going in the landfill in the future. I think I'm pretty safe in saying that for this council and future councils. So,
Councilman Dodd.
Yes, I'd like to thank everyone for coming today and engaging in this council, especially concerns of your quality of life. And to touch on the recycling, I'm pretty OCD about it these days. It's hard to believe, but yes, I am. I'll take this bottle home and put it in recycle bin in my house to make sure it is recycled. But we do have a recycling program in place, correct? Because we are meeting the standard as 35%, something like that, or a mandate. Can we do better? I think we can, and I think from this point on, we'll probably be more engaged in that. I had a lady come to me yesterday, and she spoke on the same thing about recycling, and her thought was to educate the public and have more recycling centers, and I think education is the key here, so maybe in the future we can work on it, and I think our executive is committed to this as well.
Thank you. Any other comments? Everybody good? Under presidential comments, President Shani took the words out of my mouth to encourage everybody to get out and make sure they vote, especially during this early voting season through November 1st. And if you don't manage to get there in that period of time, then you would go to, everything with early voting right now is at the Civic Center, so everybody should understand that. It's one place. If you don't manage to get there during that period of time, November 6th, of course, that you can vote in your individual neighborhood, in your individual precinct, and you have that in the mail as far as where that is, or you can call the Board of Elections to find out where your voting location is. But it's so important that you vote. I'm sensing in the community that people are beginning to grasp this. And believe me, I've seen the people at the polls over the last few days, and I'm very surprised, and I'm pleased to see how many people are coming out to vote. I think we're going to see huge numbers. I couldn't predict it, but it's going to be very large numbers, and I'm glad to see it because it's all about public input. And I also, as Councilman Dodd said, I really do appreciate the input from everyone here today. You know, we're the elected body in this community, but I don't see us as the sole, without a doubt, the sole leaders in this community. There's so many other individuals out there who are strong leaders, and we've seen that presence today. I've seen that presence over the last 4 years, and I really am grateful for the individuals such as the ones that came to the podium today and spoke, you know, and expressed their concerns for their community. It's a very strong leadership role, and we recognize that and appreciate that. This council takes that into consideration when people come and actually try to share their interests and concerns. We don't turn a deaf ear to anybody. So we'll continue with the work that we're doing. Hopefully, you believe that we're doing good work, and of course, that's what we strive to do every day. That being said, entertain a motion to adjourn, if we could, from legislative session to go into an open work session followed by a closed work session pursuant to the general provisions article section 3-305B714 to discuss a matter before a contract is awarded or bids are open related to a negotiating strategy or the contents of a bid or proposal, as public discussion or disclosure would adversely impact the ability of the public body to participate in the competitive bidding or proposal process and to consult with legal counsel to obtain legal advices to protect the attorney-client privilege.
I missed that. Can you
Repeat.
So moved.
Give him 4
They're gonna
more
have to-
years and he'll have it memorized.
Right now, you got to play back the tape. That's all I can say.
So moved.
We have a motion, second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Meeting's adjourned. First item on the open work session, do you want to take a 5-minute recess?
Yes,
We're going to take a 5-minute recess if we could. Session for Wicomico County Council, legislative session 2018-24, October 30th, 2018. The first and only item on the open work session is traffic signs on county roads. We have Mr. Paul Wilbur and Weston Young here, gentlemen.
All right. I think since we last visited this topic, Roscoe Leslie did a little statutory research, and he found, and I think each of you have, the provisions which are from the, I think, 6 elected executive counties. The statutory provisions, 5 of them make it a function of the Public Works Department in those counties, and 1 speaks in terms of the county executive overseeing essentially the Public Works Department. That would be Montgomery. As I think we talked about last time, we know that the state of Maryland has a book, if you will, of how...
It's a federal.
Or a federal book, okay, of how and when and where traffic signals, signs are to be placed. The whole idea behind that is keep the public traffic movement safe.
And to make it uniform all over.
And
consistent.
make it uniform. Obviously, there's a liability aspect to it. If you don't follow the guidelines and then someone has an accident, then they're going, some plaintiff's attorney is going to say, why didn't the county follow the state or federal guidelines? My recommendation, I think, would be that we pass a legislative bill, make this a duty of the Public Works Department, add it to the Public Works section of the code, and say in it something like what I think Harford County, that it's has to be consistent with the authority granted to the county by the state.
I thought that's kind of what we did already. Isn't that what we're doing already? Public Works, aren't they taking care of it?
Without, yes, Public Works
Correct.
currently takes care of this as part of their duties. If you want it to be more formal, we can add it as a duty in the
But that's the
code.
issue, it's not formal, it's not formalized.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some confusion in the public, that the county council still does it left over from when we didn't have an executive. And we have approved like the no parking signs before, so there, there is some instance where we have approved, signage, so.
And when Dallas was up here that last meeting, it was the subjective.
Yeah.
So whether we allow parking or not on a road isn't in
Yeah.
what is called the manual for uniform traffic control devices, MUTCD. That is about stop signs. That is about when you're doing work on a road, how many cones you need and how far out you need to notify people. If we're going to have parking or close parking, that's more subjective, and that's where I think getting the executive and council on board
Okay.
makes sense.
All right, yeah, as long as that stuff's kind of clear, the division of where it comes in, so, yeah, that, Hartford County makes a lot, it's one line, and that would clarify it, and that seems perfectly consistent, so.
I thought most of these looked like it was just for traffic control type signs, but some of the people we had heard from were talking about naming of roads. Isn't that kind of what?
Well, that's-
One concern.
It's a different issue.
I think in
I
the
thought that's
issue,
what started this.
well, I think it kind of got sidetracked. It got sidetracked. I think in reviewing the naming of roads, we realized there wasn't a sound
I got
policy for this.
Right,
Right, am I correct?
I think so.
No, it was the placement of a stop sign that,
That was another issue as well.
that brought this to my
Somebody
concern.
asked Mark for a stop sign.
Okay.
Yeah, and then it was, it started to ask, so where, does the council have the authority to put up stop signs? Is it Public Works? And there was some kind of, there's no statutory basis to figure out who does it, so.
I don't think the executive or the council wants to be in charge of placing stop signs. That's
No.
traffic engineering.
That's right.
Keep that in Public Works.
Exactly, so let's get that clarified so we can point to say, hey, well, we can blame Dallas for, for all
Agreed,
the for all the
agreed.
problems.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, we're all in on that.
Well, put it in legislation who we get to blame for,
Yeah.
okay.
Where will we stand on this as far as, and you'll have to fill me in on the correct verbiage of what they're called, signs like children at play, or not railroad, but horse crossing, which we see, or do not litter signs.
They're warning signs.
Yeah, where will we stand on that in this?
They fall in MUTCD just so that, whether you're here or you're in Delaware, Virginia, or across the state, the signs are consistent. So yellow tends to be caution, white tends to be mandatory. And if I'm messing up Dallas, I can phone a friend. So it's basically those are, if the railroad, if there is a railroad up ahead, you have a specific sign you can use. Or if there is a deaf child in the area and it's requested, we can put it. But, you know, if that family then moves or that child graduates and, you know, is no longer there, then, you know, it requires communication. I believe there's a turtle one on Beaglin by the firehouse and the Ward Museum.
I suggest you stock up on deer crossing signs.
Yeah, and in areas where, you know, it's highly prevalent that, you know, deer are crossing, you see it more on, I'll say, interstates or you know, where you're having, say foreign drivers, non-state drivers going through and not realizing that this is a heavily trafficked deer migratory area or whatever.
And most of that communication is straight from the constituent to Public Works. I mean, that's
Correct.
Now,
I must have messed up.
I was just gonna say, there's actually, for the deer crossing, if I remember correctly, it's 9 deer strikes within 5 miles is what generates that sign.
Really? Okay.
That could be anywhere.
Yeah, so you look at the crash history to see how many strikes have happened over a certain distance. The deaf child sign is actually not allowed exactly for the why Wes described. They were put up and then no one ever notifies the Public Works when they've moved away, so the signs faded, became invalid.
The children at play is still.
Children at play is actually not allowed in MUTCD anymore either.
But
But they are installed within communities.
I was gonna say, aren't communities doing that?
Yeah, they'll do it on their own outside of public right of way, and we understand that they have to pay for them, they like them.
Interesting.
It presents what's called a false sense of security. It's like, oh, there's a sign out there, so my kids can play in the yard or play out in the street. It's like, oh, it's not, which is why they were found to be ineffective.
Since they're being done in communities, is that allowed?
Not in the strict sense of MUTCD, but on private roads, MUTCD doesn't. You can put up a 80-mile-an-hour speed limit sign on your driveway if you want.
It's like a private parking lot. Sometimes you see
Yeah.
different stop signs,
That would lead into
different
my
sizes.
other question. How do we know what's a private road, what's a county road, what's a state road, city road, or federal?
Who owns the right of way? It all depends
How
on
do
who
we
owns
know?
Because we have,
I know the color of the signs, but.
Yeah, plats.
That's one way. If the road has a number, it's a state road.
Yeah.
But it sometimes, where a city annexation takes place, the portion of the road goes with it. So then it's where's the dividing line? Sometimes you have to look at the seam in the pavement to see, all right, we paved up to a certain point, then the city or the state takes it from there.
And then private roads are usually done in new communities, and then it's turned over to the county at some point.
I think it's 3 years.
Yeah, if they wish to make it a public road. If they want to have a gated community, they can keep it private, but we don't have public roads with gates.
We wouldn't maintain it.
No, not in the case of a private road.
Yeah, I mean, a good rule of thumb is if you see a green sign with white lettering, it's the city. If you see a white sign with black lettering, it's the county. And if you see a brown sign with white lettering, it's private. That's been fairly consistent, and again, that's something that, the manual helps with. And when we get a request for a sign in, one of the first things we do is look at whose road is it, where is this at, where's the dividing line?
You talk about gathering information or deer strikes. How do you gather that information? If you call, we've had, done some work, citizens and myself down at the Boston Switch Mount Herman Road intersection. Sometimes, depending on how the accident happens, the county investigates it or the state investigates it. You try to call and get that information, and nobody knows. So how do you find out that there was 5 deer strikes within so many miles or whatever? I mean,
yeah, exactly. They're reported. So there's, if you hit a deer strike and you call the police fill out a form, and that goes into the database. The challenge becomes when people hit a deer and don't say anything. So it's always good to report an accident.
Some keep going.
Yeah, it's just the more data we have, the better.
well, my neighbor had his arm stuck out his mailbox getting his mail, and a deer running the side of his car. So I mean, how do you So that's, you know what I'm saying, so I don't
Yeah.
know that those
Yeah,
those
it
reports are gonna
is-
be completely accurate. you
No,
know.
exactly. It's by no means fully encompassing. I mean, it happens all the time. People will get in some minor accident if nobody's around, that they drive off. But
What do you see is the next step here? I mean, this is an open work session. I guess maybe it's for informational purposes only. Or is there some direction that you feel we need to take as a body?
Well, I would recommend to bring clarity that we amend the public works section of the code. Let's say, put in another line of a duty of public works related to these traffic control signals.
Do we include Councilman Kilmer's suggestion for adding Dallas Baker to the documentation?
With his home phone number.
So I'm assuming you'll prepare that for Mrs. Hurley's, so Mrs. Hurley can prepare something for us? Okay.
My only question is, I mean, when you're talking about this objective signs, Weston, the language for Harford County, it says the full authority to erect traffic control devices. I mean, so that would be all of it. Is that correct?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Dallas, a parking spot, or is that considered traffic control necessarily?
I mean, it's all technically traffic control, but you're right. What it would do is, on something that political, I know personally I would be reaching out to the county leadership to find out, look, we've gotten a request in for something that could generate some negative feedback, looking for guidance on something like that. I guess they're technically considered guide signs. I'd have to go into the manual and look to see if there's anything specific as to how it says when they are established. I know there are instances where if there's a sight distance issue, for example, so if you've got a crash pattern at a particular intersection and you look at it and you see, oh, well, there's on-street parking here and it's creating a sight distance issue, that becomes a little bit more scientific. But if you've got folks parking on other one's grass and it's like, hey, look, we want no parking signs here to keep people from parking on our grass during an event, which typically happens around like stadiums and things like that, then it becomes a little more political. A lot of times what they'll do is they'll just refer to what METCDD calls engineering judgment.
The neighborhood, just as you come off 50 on the west side to the left, can't think of the name of it now. This was probably back in '08. There were trucks parking there along the street, and they came forward with a no parking request for that. And trucks were sitting there all night, letting motor, kind of across from the Royal Farms down there somewhere. So that's how that happened. We passed the resolution.
Stanton Avenue.
Stanton Avenue, yeah. So.
Yeah, and there's been issues like that in Fruitland down there by the roundabout. There's been a couple trucks parking in that area. We dealt with that when I was at the state.
Okay, gentlemen, any other questions?
Thank you. Okay, we'll draw up something, bring it back for discussion.
Sounds good.
All right, thank you.
Very much. Entertain a motion to adjourn the open session, go into closed session.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All right, we'll now transition to closed session.
Wait, sure.